I entered foster care at 15 years old. My mom had some drug issues, and her boyfriend had sexually abused me. So that's kind of how I got placed into foster care. Um, Once I got placed into foster care, I had moved around quite a bit. I had been in 9 different places before I had aged out at the age of 18. My first home that I lived in was, it was very cold and not too interactive with the foster mom, and I was only there one night, so that experience was pretty sad. I remember crying myself to sleep and just feeling very, very worried about what was going on with my life. And being a teenager, you kind of also have all the other worries of like your friends and what's going to happen. And it was really scary. So, I just also remember that the foster mom there, that morning that I woke up, she was just telling like the kids to get ready for school, to get me breakfast, like kind of demanding, and it wasn't very warm feeling. So that was my first placement experience, and that was one night. And then when I met with my social worker, she told me, we're either going to leave you in the home or we'll try to find you a new home. And I told her I didn't want to go back to that foster home, that it was a little too structured, if that's what you want to call it, strict, and not very comforting. So my second placement that I got placed in was with a high school friend of mine. I got placed in the home with another girl, and it was her grandma who was taking care of us. She was very, very nice, very welcoming. I felt super comfortable there. But I think at the time, her grandma probably didn't realize how much care went into what was going on with me and the other girl that was in foster care. So I would say probably after like a month, she told us that she couldn't take care of us anymore, and she brought us back to CPS. So that was really, really sad because we liked being there, and I was able to stay at my school and stay with my friends. And I didn't really understand why she took us back, but I know now that she did it because, sometimes a lot of people go into it with their heart and not really think about all the responsibility that comes with being a foster parent. And I think also because she was a little bit older too, that was a lot for her to handle. 3 teenage girls in one home. So then after that, I got placed in a shelter, and that was probably like jail, if I could describe it as anything. Everything was structured from the time you ate, showered, slept, your phone calls. You couldn't take a nap or lay down on your bed during the day. It wasn't very pleasant. There was a lot of kids in there, and then the employees working there were just kind of like in and out, and it just didn't feel like a home at all. It was more of like an institution, or I don't know, it was really not very fun. So after the shelter, I went to, well, I'm sorry. Before that, before I moved from the shelter, I met a girl named Ashley, and she became one of my really good friends. Still friends with her to this day. And when I got placed, after being in the shelter, I got placed with a foster mom, and I had begged her to have Ashley come because she was still in the shelter, and she allowed her to come. We went on like a camping trip. The house was nice. They had a pool. It was in a nice area. She had a son that was my age that went to the school we were going to start going to. And things were okay for a little bit. And then slowly there were times where we were not treated the same as her son. So we had certain foods that we could eat, things that we couldn't touch, times that we could use the phone. If her son wanted to be on the phone or use certain things, he was the one who got basically the control over that stuff. It even got to a point where her son was somewhat physical with me, over like using the dryer or something like that. He ended up pushing me. At that time, I was pregnant. Um, I got pregnant when I was in her care. And when that whole situation happened and he pushed me, I left. I ran away. So I was gone for about 3 days. And then I went back to CPS. I actually had a pretty good relationship with my social worker. So I was able to talk to her and tell her kind of what was going on. And she convinced me to come back and that she would find me a better home. So I went back and ended up getting placed back into the shelter. By then, I think I was probably like 3 or 4 months pregnant. I stayed in the shelter for a couple of months, and then they found me another home, and that was my last foster home before I lived with my biological dad. And that foster home changed everything for me. So when I moved in there, immediately I felt super welcomed. I connected with their family, and they had 3 biological kids living there. And I didn't feel like I was a foster child. I didn't feel like a stranger. They connected me with other members of their family by taking me to parties or barbecues or things like that. So I didn't feel left out of anything. And then my foster mom, she was really, really amazing. She taught me different skills like how to do scrapbooking, and she was just really there for me. And she showed me a lot of motherly love that I was lacking in my life at that time. So I think that what she did for me was kind of give me this new sense of what a mother's supposed to look like. And I think from that point on, it's helped shape me into the mother that I am today. And without her, I'm not sure that I would be that mother, because I didn't have that structure or that example to kind of take in and put into my own parenting with my daughter, who I had at 16. So after that placement with them, they ended up moving out of state, and I had the option to be adopted by them or to return to my biological dad's house or to another foster home. Since I had just had my daughter, I wasn't trying to take her away from her dad and move out of state, and it just seemed like a lot to take in at that time. So I chose to try to work on my relationship with my biological dad and move in with him. And so I did, and I started going to school. Things were okay. And then my dad and I didn't really ever see eye to eye on things. He had a very different way of looking at all the situations I was in. He was kind of judgmental about me being a teen mom, which was understandable, but he didn't see it in the right way or express things in the right way. So I ended up running away from there at 17 and a half. I left with my daughter, who was, I think she was like she was like 6 months old. And I left to my grandma's in Modesto, actually, and I stayed there until I turned 18. And when I ran away, I never heard from anybody from CPS. And after that, my early adulthood was very messy, very challenging, led me to a lot of tough things to overcome. But I think that the one foster home that I had, it showed me kind of how important I was, and it always like brought up those feelings for me to know that things would be okay. I can get over things. And yeah, kind of where I'm at now, and learning still, but doing much, much better. So